Hope everyone's staying warm this evening. We'll give people a couple of minutes and then I will start in. Say 2 or 3 minutes or so, and then we'll jump in. You should be able to ask questions in the Q&A at any time. I'll just grab myself a water and we'll get started in a minute. Okay. So my goal tonight is to tell you a little bit about our company. If you aren't familiar with us, I know in the registration list, a lot of you are former students. Hello to you. And tell you a little bit about the differences between the old and the new early childhood, and tell you a little bit about our program. At the end of the last slide, there's a discount code if you want to take this class is coming up in January. There's a code that'll get you a 20% discount. All right, so tell you a little bit about us. We've been at this since 1999. I and the people that work for us are public school educators. We've worked with many public school districts and colleges. Recently, I've done programs. I was in Lawrence, the Lawrence Family Development Charter School just yesterday. Endicott, Bay Path currently are people that we work with. We've had thousands of students, always have guaranteed success. It's been unconditionally free to repeat our classes, our video programs. You have those as long as you need them. And our curriculum is really based on basic skills. So anyone with any learning issues, ADHD, ESL, people who have been at school for a long time, the way we kind of build our programs works for everybody. We don't take anything for granted that we believe you to know. We try to build it all from scratch for you. Again, our curriculum is different from others because we really develop our programs through a special ed lens. I and the people that work for me are all special educators. We do a lot of actual teaching. It's tougher on Zoom than it was in the past in person, but with technology nowadays, not a whole lot is different. Class sizes aren't huge, so questions and interaction is encouraged. And again, we work from basic to advanced skills and strategies so that it's accessible to just about everybody. We really talk a lot about test taking strategies, and I teach you my system. It's really going to change the way you look at multiple choice tests. I don't know if I've invented anything in what I teach, but I certainly deliver it in a very different way. What we do, we have live Zoom classes. There are self-based video programs. We could always tutor. And we have flex consultation and review for those of you who've qualified for a flex and need some direction with that as well. We offer classes on these MTELs here and other communication literacy alternatives. We're going to be bringing those folks together with our reading and writing classes over the next month or so. The video programs we have, this has to be updated here. The general curriculum math is now the math and science, and that's being updated. I'll have a program for this test and the new multi-subject, which is the ELA history soon. And we have tutoring available for all MTELs that we work with and a couple others as well. So I wanted to talk a bit about the differences between the old early childhood and the new. It's less than a year old, so I think it's still worthwhile talking about this stuff because most people have experience with the old exam and not the new one. They're similar in their basic construction: 100 multiple choice questions, 2 open response questions. The score breakdown is 80% of the score is multiple choice, 20%, 10% each for the open response questions. You still have 4 hours to take it, and the passing score is still 240, which is a scaled score. It's changed a little bit in terms of the breakdown of the questions. Early childhood development was 30%. Now they have child development, language foundations, and writing process, 26 questions, and very different kinds of questions now compared to then. Then the old test, they had questions about children's literature and the writing process, and the content knowledge, which was your history, social science, math, and science. And those were kind of hardcore history and science and math questions. And that's changed quite a bit as well. Now, whoops, I want to go back a bit. Back to here, I'm sorry. So the content of the questions is probably the biggest thing you'll notice if you've taken the old test and look at the new test. Up here in child development, they don't have a lot of theorists or hardcore developmental theories like in the past. The math questions are different too, where it's there is some math you have to know, but there are more questions based on how would you teach this kid about this concept, and less do you know this concept. So it's more focused on teaching practice than you as a teacher having specific content knowledge. And that goes the same in the other categories as well, right? It's much based on how would you teach this than how would you, do you know this? They have made it more difficult, I think, in terms of the questions themselves. A lot of them are more language dense now, and some people have been struggling with understanding the question, getting through the question, and really understanding what is being asked than previously, where it was more, here's a math question, here's a science question. So you might not have known the answer, but you knew what they were asking you. The open response questions kind of look the same, but they are different in some ways. There are some similarities. We'll look at examples of that in a minute. So to give you an idea of how the test has changed, old questions would ask something like this: why do preschool kids want to see every product they have marketed to them in commercials? Or what's the most common birth defect? And a new question may be structured something like this. So after providing students with explicit instructions and modeling, a second grade teacher creates a visual display of established communication strategies for students to reference during small group class discussions. And they give you a little snippet of how they structure the classroom discussions. The teacher's approach would most likely support progress towards which of the following instructional goals. So here is a little lesson or part of a lesson. What's the teacher's goal? So again, more about how to teach, why to teach, what are you teaching, than do you actually have the content knowledge. All right, big difference between the new and the old test. And I think generally it's a little easier. But again, this is kind of dense language wise, and this is kind of a lot going on. So that can be more difficult for people than the somewhat more basic structure of questions previously. So old content knowledge questions, which are the following excerpts from the Massachusetts Constitution, illustrates a commitment to the principle of popular sovereignty. Charles Darwin, asking about natural selection here. And then a math question where you got to kind of do a little algebra and figure out how much toll money is collected for cars or trucks based on how many cars and trucks and what they charge and all that stuff. So again, these questions were based on what do you know about history, science, or math? Math question for comparison. Kindergarten teacher distributes materials for a project, and the child says, that's not fair. They got 8 and I got 7. This child's statement demonstrates acquisition of which of the following mathematical skills. So it's not, do you know math? It's not, does the kid know math? It's looking at a concept of math within kind of child development. And can you identify that particular skill? Very different. Science, again, this is the new test. They give you information and or a scenario to answer questions. And this is about leadership. So there was kind of a social emotional foundational type questions in here as well. Leadership, citizenship are basis of these questions. Again, very different content from what they had previously. New science question. Second grade students are given a variety of materials to create a model showing the characteristics of a plant and how it lives in its own environment. This activity would best support students' understanding of the ways in which, so again, a bigger, higher process question where it is more about bigger question stuff, not do you understand the details of the particular science. Another one here, as part of a daily morning meeting, kindergarten children use observations to collect data about the weather. The teacher records the class's data in a weekly weather tracker. At the end of the week, the teacher engages the children in a whole group discussion to compare any consistencies or changes in the weather. The teacher's instructional approach would best promote students' application of which of the following science and engineering practices. Again, here's a snippet of something. What's the bigger picture going on here? Very different than, do you know the specific science? So again, here are the differences summed up for you. The old test, field 2, very content, very knowledge, very memorization dependent. The new one is more focused on concepts, pedagogy, teaching methods, and strategies. Traditional history, math, scenarios to interpret. In the old test, you solve the problem, you have to know the answer. The new test, more kids solving the problem, you're analyzing their process or what they're doing. Open response comparison. Here's the old test where they would give you a scenario, very short here, kind of just kind of telling you about what the question is about. And then you'd prepare a response where you would tell us something about whatever they're asking about, and then take a learning experience that would help kids distinguish in this case, liquids and solids, or explain about the situation. And then the third point, explain why this experience fosters learning and development for kindergarten students. So what pedagogically or developmentally is good about your lesson. So there are some similarities from this and the new exam in terms of these last two bullet points, because you're going to have to come up with an intervention, like a little learning experience or a lesson plan. And we're still going to have to explain why what you choose develops learning in whatever age they're looking at. This is an example from another state's early childhood exam that's very similar to what we'll see here. So they give some kind of scenario, some kind of work sample, and they give you the situation. We have a young kid, 4-year-old kid, typically developing, speaks English at home. She's with the teacher, and she does this writing. So the teacher says, wow, that's really great. Thanks for sharing this with me. Tell me what about your writing here. And the kid says, the sun is falling down because it's nighttime at my house and the sky is blue and very orange. So you have to say, all right, what does that mean for the kid's writing and development of writing? Now, the Massachusetts test has been asking, give me a strength, or tell me whatever strengths you see with examples. They're really heavy on providing data for whatever you say is a strength. And then they may ask, give me an example of a weakness. Where does the kid lack? This question is saying, tell me a skill that's going to be developed next by this student. All right, so it's a little bit different from the MTEL, and this, I believe, is the Arizona teacher certification exam. And then notice the last piece here, explain why the strategies you described were effective. And I skipped one, right? They ask you to describe instructional strategies that would promote the development of the skill. On the MTEL, it's really to address the student's weakness, and then explain why the strategies would be effective. So a lot of what we do when talking about this is really talking about strategies that can be applied to almost anything. And so if I know my strategies going in, then I can explain why my strategies work. So I don't have to come up with a lot of new information when I go in to write this test. So we have some kind of cookie cutter responses that we can use that's very applicable to this particular question. So again, comparing the open responses, little information on the topic. Now they give you a topic, scenario, and work sample. It could be almost too much information. The one that we showed there was relatively streamlined. The MTEL has sometimes 2 or 3 work samples, discussion with the teacher. It can be a little overwhelming sometimes. So you have to create the lesson plan. You do have to do a similar learning experience after identifying the strengths and the weaknesses of the student's work. And then you have to come up with instructional strategies. And again, explain why your learning strategies would be effective. And I found over the years, I've been doing prep for this test since probably the before 2010. People mostly have trouble with the explaining why the strategies would be effective. And so we, again, we have a lot of language that we feed you that helps you with that part of the question. The way that we structure the program is some way similar to our old program. We start off with test-taking skills and strategies, really working on how to think about and approach multiple choice tests. It really should change the way you think about these things and give you a very logic-based, specific strategy with which to attack any standardized multiple choice test. There are a lot of strategies that are Pearson specific and MTEL specific that may not work on other tests, but are certainly going to be helpful on this exam. Heavy on content in the last exam, we talked a lot about history, science, math, development. Now, we still cover a lot of that stuff, but it's not as heavy duty, right? We focus more on how to understand and interpret questions. We do questions in class together. We look at trying to find what they're really asking me, what information is important in the question, and how can we use the answer choices with our test taking skills and strategies to find the right answer if we don't know immediately. And we have a lot of examples of real open response questions that people have asked us about that we can really structure how to write, how to respond, so we don't freak out about the open response questions. Both programs guaranteed to pass, free to repeat. I've always had my classes that way, so you're not left high and dry. We also have a nice little community we've developed online. We have a Facebook group where you can interact with me and other teachers, ask any questions you have. Students form study groups in the Facebook group. We have almost 500 people in there. We've opened it up, started really during COVID, and it's really been growing since then. So the website is here, joineti.com. Here is a discount code if you would like to sign up through the weekend. So right up until Sunday night sometime, you can get a discount on this particular test with this code here. Again, my name, my email, phone number. You can always call me with any questions, comments, or concerns. I'll leave this up for a second, and so you can get this information if you need it. Take a picture, but we can go to questions before we wrap up. Feel free to drop questions in the Q&A box. The recording for this will be posted online, and I'll be sharing it through YouTube and sending everyone who's registered an email so you can watch it later at your leisure, share it with your friends, etc. Anybody have any questions? No questions are coming through. If something's not working, send me a text here and let me know, because usually there are a number of questions that will be coming through by now. Anybody have any questions? I'm not seeing any. It looks like most people are still here. So I'll give people a couple more minutes to see if they want to ask anything. If not, we'll sign off. And I will. Hello, Diane. We're starting up in January. I believe the first date is it's the second week in January. Classes are starting. I think these classes are starting on Wednesday evening, so it might be the 10th of January, I think. If you go to the website, there's a registration page there, and you can see all the dates. Anything else? Now I found the list of you guys and know a few of you. Good to see you, or at least you're seeing me. Good to have you here. Anything else? Any other questions? All right. If you come up with any questions, email me, text me, find me on Facebook. Hope to see you all in class, and have a good night. Thank you all very much.